So we're going to change a little bit of the format because we want to get things out in a more timely manner. And we have soccer camps to coach and stuff to do. So doing this every day has been tough. So in this episode today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the last 2 days of games. And then we're going to break down the whole round of 16, our comments and predictions and insights. And then we'll come back after the round of 16. And hopefully we'll both be happy with Brazil and USA advancing. If not, one or both of us could be very
24
depressed.
hours away and I'm still sick. It's 30 hours away and still sick about it.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And then we'll break down the whole round of 16 and talk about I guess it's semifinals when we get down to the last 8. So it'll be interesting. Okay. Excited about this. First game we'll talk about is Spain, Austria. And a game went as expected. The only thing I will say about it, for me, specific to that game, that seems important, is that Spain did a good job of being direct instead of just knocking the ball around. They seem to have a strategy for penetration, getting deep, getting wide a bit, creating some opportunities, and they didn't just lay back and Austria didn't have an answer for Spain getting in there and scoring the 3 goals. To me, was the most significant thing about it, because I can't remember if Austria did. It seems like they did play pretty low pressure, but it wasn't effective. They couldn't really keep Spain from scoring. But that's my take on the game. About what we expected. It wasn't a super exciting game unless you're rooting for Spain and wanting them to score a bunch of goals, and you're very happy. But as far as a super competitive game, I would say it was not. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it's, sometimes you play low pressure with intent, and other times you're forced back and you just can't win the ball. I think that it's one of those games where Austria's going to have 3-part chances, and they better make 1 or 2 of them. And if you're the weaker team and you score first, there's absolute hope, right? If you're the weaker team and you're down 1-0 at halftime, there's some hope. If you're the weaker team and you're down 1-0 and there's still 15 minutes left in the first half or whatever, that's bad news. So it's one of those where Austria would hope that they scored 2 of their 3 shots or 2 of their 4 shots, and you hope that Spain misses about 14 chances. It started a little bit like that. It's the exact same game as France versus Sweden. It's the exact same game, except Austria was a bit more organized. It's the exact same game, actually. Like, how's it still 0-0? France did a bicycle kick from 16 yards out that hit the post. They're playing with it. How's it still 0-0? And so, not an exciting game unless you're a Spaniard and you're like, let's not screw this up. Let's just move on. It was a boring everyday job. It was easy for them.
Yeah. That was good. At least you had 3 goals. Exciting to cheer about as a soccer fan. I'm going to skip the Portugal-Croatia game. We'll come back to that because that there's a lot to talk about. Switzerland-Algeria. Switzerland took care of business, and Algeria just looked to me disorganized and didn't have much of a chance at any point in the game because it didn't seem like they could put an attack together, a cohesive attack together in that game. If I remember right, it was Switzerland the whole way, and they were outclassed. I expected more from Algeria. Back to the culture thing, Crystal and I were shocked at how many Africans were on the Switzerland team. Yeah, because historically, you expect us to be the Switzerland team. It's going to be a bunch of blonde white guys from Switzerland. And so it just shows you that, again, we talked about how with a lot of countries are becoming the melting pot. To be fair, I was talking to my voice teacher about this the other day. The countries where there isn't a whole lot of immigration, Asian countries, Japan, South Korea, and China, for example. And what he pointed out to me was that those countries their populations are declining because people aren't having babies. And immigration has become a way of survival. And again, it's the same thing that happens in this country, state by state. California, people are leaving California. California's only way of growing population right now is letting immigrants in. You could argue the same thing for Minnesota. People are more likely to leave Minnesota than to want to move there. It's a cold place. It's wonderful. I lived in Minneapolis for a couple of years. Huge Prince fan. I used to go to parties at Paisley Park all the time. Don't get me started. Don't get yourself started on that, Danny, right? So love Minnesota. Love Minneapolis. Would I rather live there or Denver or even kind of Kansas City, right? Minneapolis has got it making a hard case to get people there. So we see that in our states where states that want to let more immigrants in because their populations are declining, potentially. They're afraid of that. And we see that in different countries where they refuse to let immigration, like a Japan or a China or South Korea, and their populations are declining. And maybe that's what's happening in Switzerland and Sweden and France, for that matter, where they're thinking, hey, we got to grow our population, so we're letting in immigrants, and they come from all over. And Africa seems to be a place where a lot of them come from, especially in the soccer world, because there's so many great athletes coming out of Africa. My gosh, they're kicking butt in the World Cup. Africa nations, so many of them went on to the round of 32 at least.
Yeah.
And for so many of them, their best players are playing for a European team.
Yeah. Yeah. In that, to me, I would just be like frustrated because they have so many players who could just play for their original land, country of birth, whatever. But then again, a lot of them, they want a European passport because then they can play in the big clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and Liverpool. And I did not mention any of the Manchester teams. Let me say one more thing about it too. The Swiss took a ton of refugees from when Yugoslavia broke up. We said it was 7 nations crammed into one. In a way, it broke up into 7. They took in a ton of refugees. So when the Swiss and Serbia played, when Albania plays or whatever, I can't explain the whole bit of it. The celebration Sheridan Shaqiri had done, which he did this, and I don't mean to offend anybody if that does, I just know about the eagle and all. So when you get to the Serbs, this 2-headed eagle looking opposite ways, whatever. And so they took in so many from former Yugoslavia when it broke up in the beginning of the 90s, 91, 92. So a ton of them, Granit Xhaka, again, Sheridan Shaqiri, and there's a ton more. What the Swiss have done, though, is it's a Swiss watch in a way, in that they're so quiet. In fact, and I'm saying this personally, they were traveling days twice when the Swiss played. They were traveling days. I didn't get to see them, but they're not the sexy team. They're a Swiss watch. They've just been winning. And if you think about it, they tied Qatar, who to me was the worst team in the World Cup. They tied Qatar 0-0 on their first game. How depressing is that? Suddenly they're in the final 16. And that's one in which everyone's like, my goodness, what happened to Switzerland? And suddenly they're in the first. So if you think about it, they beat Canada, very upsetting for Canada, 2-1. But they start by tying Qatar, and then they finish by beating Canada. So Canada goes second and doesn't get to stay in Canada. They go second in their group. And the Swiss snuck out winning the group, and then they won this last game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So they're doing what a number of teams are that we're seeing is they're getting better as the tournament going on. For example, I would argue Spain's even getting better as the tournament's going on.
100%.
Maybe Portugal even, because they were some teams that were inconsistent in the early parts of the pool play. So Swiss came.
Colombia, the game before, they tied 0-0. Colombia were like, it was just a firing squad. And then all of a sudden, hey, they tied that game. And then they beat Croatia, like you said. So there's actually probably 8 teams that are doing this right now. Really growing.
Yeah. So the Portugal-Croatia game, man, they started that off telling the story of how it's going to be either likely Modric's last game or it's going to be Ronaldo's last World Cup match. And that was a good way to set the tone for the game, because even if you don't know those players like you and I do, and most people know Ronaldo, but a lot of people west of Europe don't know Modric. And the funny thing about my Rottweiler's name is Modric, and I can tell you, I think I've said it before, I take him to the groomer where I'm out walking him or whatever. 1 in 10 people go, oh, did you name your dog? In this country, 1 in 10 people say, did you name your dog after Modric, the soccer player? If I was over in Europe, everybody knows. But they would. But a good game could have gone either way. And we have to talk about VAR or VAR, right? I believe it gave Portugal an earned penalty kick, if I'm not mistaken. It was the right call for that. For Croatia, it disallowed a goal that probably would not have been disallowed before VAR, because you would not have seen the ball barely skim the Croatian player's head, because he would have been onside had it not barely touched the player's head ahead of him. Flicked on, which wasn't a bad idea to flick it on. That was a great effort, but it threw off the timing of the guy on the bar post. To be fair, it didn't. I don't know if it changed the direction of the ball, even just a minor amount. It was the right call. but it would not have been called in the last in another era. And so I think that's frustrating for Croatian fans with that. But what do you think about the Portugal game outside of VAR and with VAR? What are your two comments along those lines?
Here's the tough thing. There's human error. Even if we bring in VAR, there's human error, right? Because humans are running it and pausing at this moment, whatever. But if you bring in VAR, you got to get all the calls absolutely right. But you cannot bring in VAR and then miss calls. And it's like, why are we doing VAR then? Let's just go with straight up human error. And so it's a tough thing, isn't it? Let's just go with straight up human error. Yesterday, I watched a 15-minute clip that I love, and it was the first division in England of the 70s, and it was football of the 70s, and it's beautiful. Pure mud fields that no rec kid would play on today, right? But these are the players who play for England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales and Northern Ireland, and pure mud. And, shirts that are super, super tight, and they even had some tassels on there. It was beautiful. And you see some of the goals there, though. Players absolutely, utterly offsides. But it's so quick where this guy's pulling up and this guy's running like this, that if you were to be able to have the technology to pause it, and they only had one angle, or one from the side, one from behind the goal, you would see that it was already like this. Like, he's 3.5 yards offside. But it's so fast, right? Today, if you have VAR, you better get it right. That's the only good thing about it. The frustrating thing, too, is, here's an example. With all my heart, I was pretty sure Gabriel Martinelli was onside when he scored for Brazil. But how do you receive the ball on the 6-yard box and have time to receive it and open up and tap it into the far low corner and be on sides? How? So I'm like, I'm not going to celebrate. I'm losing my skull. And then if you notice, replays have been so poor. To me, it's shady. Replays have been so poor that it takes 45 seconds for them to pull up the replay. Some things haven't been replayed. That should be. It took them 45 seconds to pull up the replay. And I'm like, come on, man. I think we just won 2-1. I can't celebrate. And that's a frustrating thing. And VAR is getting better, but the more technology they bring in, like you got quicker. And then they're bringing in more and more technology, and now it's slower again, in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they'll wait 90 seconds before you can celebrate. And think about this. I'm 19. I'm representing my country. First goal I've ever scored. In fact, I just got on the team 3 games ago total. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got on the field, and I just scored a goal. I can't celebrate. Or I lose my mind, and it's that reverse, right? You celebrate, you go nuts, and then it's not a goal. And then suddenly now the other team's celebrating like they scored a goal. But you're the one who scored the goal. It's so frustrating. I will say one more comment. That's far. But one more comment is, it was cool that Roberto Martinez, I think everybody's shocked, subbed out Cristiano Ronaldo with 10 minutes left. And Ronaldo had to, like, Zlatan, I am Zlatan. There's so many self-promoters that it's, okay, hey, brilliant player. Oh, people self-promote. Like, I don't even know who this guy is because I'm not cool. I am Speed. He's some obnoxious little punk from what I know. I don't even know who the guy is. I am Speed. What a bum. And I don't know who he is. He might give money to charity. I don't know. How's he making money, though? Running his mouth and just jumping in places. That's what I've been told about him. In fact, I haven't let my kids watch him because the one video I saw of him, he was a punk. And so Cristiano Ronaldo, he is. You know, when you make yourself a character and you become that character, method acting, whatever. I think Cristiano Ronaldo at one point was a kid who just wants to play soccer. And he's a great player. And then he pouts, and he's got to show that he's pouting. Of course, the camera looks for him, and he pouts, but he's on the field and he's pouting and he mutters words. And then he goes off. And it shows it's great for the manager because it's tough when you have a star who's just above the manager. Now, where Scaloni does it well of Argentina, but where he does it well of Argentina is he just wants to be very quiet. And at the end of the day, say, I won a World Cup. I coached another World Cup for Argentina. With Roberto Martinez, he made the sub. Cristiano pouted. It was very visible. And then guess what? They won in those last 8 or 10 minutes that Cristiano Ronaldo was on the bench. But Cristiano Ronaldo gets the benefit of his manager. Cristiano, you get another game. I pull you out for 10 minutes, and I give you 90 minutes. It was pretty cool. It was well done by Martinez. So I'm happy.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. When I describe Modric and Messi have a similar personality, they let their play do the talking, right? They don't. Ronaldo looks like a supermodel. He takes off his shirt. He got the abs. He is, in some ways, he represents a lot of what's wrong with sports in that regard. It's very self-promoting, self-grandizing, the things that you don't want your kids. And in fact, I watched, I've refereed a few, stepped in referee, or just watched of our 3-on-3 matches where one team was like 6 little Ronaldos and their hair was perfect. And we're talking they're 8, 9 years old.
Mommy brought
Their
him to the
hair,
game. Mommy brought him to the game.
their hair is perfect. They've got the skills. One of them even tried a rainbow, and they were so cocky and arrogant. It was a bunch of little Ronaldos. Now, they backed it up with skill. They were amazing. I talked to the coach afterwards. I'm like, what club did you come from? I've seen that twice in 3v3 matches. In both cases, it was 8, 9-year-olds emulating Ronaldo. And to be fair, they weren't trash talking or being cocky, even towards the other team, but they were very cocky and arrogant with their skills. They backed it up. And so I was like, wow, and Ronaldo backs it up. He's always one of the greatest players. So it's okay. He's not a poser. He's a poser, but he's not a false poser. He actually is a great player.
Correct. And here's the thing. When he steps out, like these little kids who try rainbows and this and that, you know what? I got news for you. Playing with the ball does not work. Ronaldo does the work. More push-ups, more pull-ups, more plyo, more this, more that, better diet. He does all the work. So these guys, they have no body fat because they're 8.5 years old. But it's the greatest sport in the planet. You've done no work. I'm working with the ball. That's not work. You've done no work. You're playing with the ball. Are you doing the work? That's the problem. And that's what people don't see. So where Ronaldo deserves it is, no, he's done more work than everybody else. He's done more work than the next guy.
As opposed to, some of the prima donnas who you just saw kind of sadly decline and try to hold on. Like
hey, shut
Maradona.
It. Don't talk about Neymar. Quit talking about Neymar.
I'm not going to talk about Neymar. I'm going to talk about Maradona. Maradona was sad. What you saw happen to him. Now, if you watch the biography of Maradona, you see how he got swept into the Italian culture back then, and he was literally, the guys that owned the teams were criminals and drug dealers and all that kind of stuff. And so he got kind of swept up in all of that. And to Ronaldo's credit, he did not get swept up into all that. He's doing a great job. And I will say, you're right. I was describing that Ronaldo versus Messi. And Messi puts in the work, obviously. Modric puts in the work. I'm sure they do, just like Ronaldo, because they're playing at an older age. Our USA's center back, what's his name? Who's 38 years old? Reem. He doesn't get talked about. Yeah, Reem. He didn't get talked about that much because he's such a late bloomer. He didn't even really start playing on the world stage until after 35 or whatever. But what I've been pleased about is Ronaldo can be disruptive if he whines and moans too much. And he's a hard player to have on your team as a coach because he will flex his muscle of just, if he's not happy with his playing time or whatever, but he's been more humble than ever before. Like giving up that free kick, being the dummy, the decoy for the free kick in the first one that we'll play. He came off, whined a little bit. That's good. You don't want a player happy to be, happy to sub off. And I'm sure he patted the guy, and then he was supportive of them winning. That's what he cares about more than anything. To your point, but it's uncomfortable having Ronaldo on your team. It's not uncomfortable having Messi or Modric on your team as a manager, because if you take them off, they're probably going to agree with you. They're probably going, oh yeah, I was tired. I'm like, save my legs for next game, for whatever reason it is. There's no reason to take those guys off because they're midfielders, because they're more creators than the guy finishing. Sometimes you have to take a guy off to put some fresh legs up front to put a ball in the goal. And Ronaldo's going to lose steam in that last 10, 15 minutes.
And what I said too, Dan, I agree. What I said too is I got to give him credit. When Kevin De Bruyne was taken off, they're down 2-0. The Belgians sub Kevin De Bruyne off. He's irate. He's irate. I'm saying, but man, he kept cool. He was so cool. And he sprinted off the field. He high-fived the coach. And he went and he sat in the back. And he's a fighter. And what a beautiful attitude. And I wondered, and they came back and won 3-2, right? 1 minute out of penalty kicks. They came back and won 3-2. And what would have happened if he threw something down and he went off? Instead, he sprinted off and they won 3-0. From that point on, they won 3-0. And that was literally 20 minutes left in the game or something like that, 25 minutes left in the game, and they won 3-0. And again, Hey, thank you, coach. I don't think Raul Garcia is a brilliant coach, but thank you, coach, for subbing me in crazy, subbing Jeremy Doku, young, brilliant. And we won 3-0. You gave me another day to step on the field, right? That's
Oh,
so.
yep,
Go ahead. Sorry.
it is. Yeah. No, all right. Well, let's move on. Talk about yesterday's games. We'll save Argentina for the last. The Australia Egypt game. Everybody's happy about. Oh, Egypt looked great. They won the game. No, they tied Australia 1-1, and they had to beat them in penalty kicks. And Australia looked like Australians taking penalty kicks. They weren't technically very good on penalty kicks.
Yeah.
But I thought they exposed Egypt a bit, and the fact that Egypt had to beat them in penalty kicks, to me, I'd be concerned if I'm Egypt that I couldn't just beat the snot out of Australia, like the U.S. did.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't bode well, or that it, and they're going to be more tired. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with Egypt in that game, even though it was a good game. And if you didn't know that Australia was a much weaker team than Egypt, then you might have just enjoyed the game and not thought of that, or that you would expect Egypt to be a much stronger team than Australia, I guess. So to me, that was a cautionary tale for Egypt. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. And you know what? I am really bad at this. I admit it. And so I try not to be bad at it, but I'm really bad at it. I hold on to not image, I don't want to say that, reputations of people way too long. Here's an example. In the 2006 World Cup, I remember my younger brother, Tito, a lot of people know Tito, talking and saying that Roberto Carlos was too old and Cafu was too old. I think he said both of them, because this is 20 years ago now, right? And I remember saying, no, you write it out. And this does make sense. You write it out until it doesn't work anymore. And when it doesn't work anymore, it seems like it was all of a sudden. And there were signs, but you keep winning because you have fighters, you have warriors. It's a sign, but you keep winning, right? And then all of a sudden it's like you get your tail kicked. Okay, that generation's gone, if that makes sense. What I would say is Egypt is such a passionate soccer country. And I remember 2009 going into the 2010 World Cup, Egypt scared me. I'm like, dude, they're a good team. Not to win the thing, but they scared me. They're a good team. You know what? Mo Salah is much older. Mo Salah is Cristiano Ronaldo, let's say. Modric, they will prop him up. What's the movie? Psycho. They will prop him up like Psycho with his mom when he's 54 years old, if he still wants to play, if that makes sense. He is the man. And they will hold him up when he's 54. Like Brazil with Neymar. They will hold him up as long as they can, if that makes sense. So Egypt is not a good team. Australia, I think I've seen a ton of teams do this. They use so much energy to tie the game, and then they go back, sit, okay, now that it's 1-1 again, sit back mode. And I think that when Australia tied the game, they had dominated for 25, 30 minutes. They should have just kept going. Can they take a 2-1 lead and be dead the last 30 minutes and just clear balls out or whatever? But when Australia tied the game, they sat back. And then from then on, Egypt overtook the game. I'll say one last thing. Penalty kicks. If you take a circle and you put it right on the top corner, I'm going to put it right here, top corner, 270 degrees of that circle is out of bounds. Wide, above and wide, or above. Don't aim at the top corner. That instantly is telling me that the keeper scares you so much. Now, if you can put it there every time, fine. But two of them missed it and they're out of the World Cup. That the keeper scares you so much that you think that 8 by 24 feet, he can get everything. 8 by 24 feet, he can get everything. Put it side netting low on the ground. No, side netting and 18 inches higher than 18 inches, you're in trouble. Side netting low and on the ground. Or hit a rope, neck, collarbone to neck high, straight down the middle, if that makes sense. Okay, let me say one last thing. The Australian coach, I don't know what he did. I think it was a fake. I don't know. I have no problem with everyone. The keeper didn't even make a save. Do you remember? He subbed on his penalty kicking specialist goalkeeper. And the keeper didn't even make a save, everyone says. That's easy. At this point, it's not a skill game, it's a psychological game. You know what? He could have put in his fifth string goalkeeper. As long as Egypt thought there was a specialist, that's great. Now, here's the truth. He dove the proper way on the first time, and I looked at my boy Jack, and I said, see, that's good. Because if he goes the proper way on the second or third, not even all three, the second or third, Egypt's going to, holy cow, they do have data on our penalty kicks. But he went the right way on the first one. I'm trying to think. I think he stopped it. I forget. All these games run together. But the coach, and there, I heard criticism. Why didn't he just stay with the other goalkeeper? Alisson, to me, is the overall most rounded best goalkeeper in the world. To me, he is out of this world. He's very poor with penalty kicks. He is bad. If Brazil don't sub him off for penalty kicks, I'm going to be crushed. I'm going to be like, my gosh, no, please, Lord, don't let us get to penalty kicks. Let's win before. If they don't, he's not a penalty kick specialist. You don't know that. I just need you to think that he's a penalty kick specialist, if that makes sense. If you remember in the 2006 World Cup with Jens Lehmann, the Germans did something brilliant. And I don't even know if it was a shopping list or whatever else. I don't know. I think we're missing 2 games on my list. Not on your list, on my list. I don't know if it was a shopping list or whatever. But Jens Lehmann, they pulled it out and they looked at it and there was a list and he put it in his sock or whatever so that he was showing like, I've got notes on all you penalty kickers. How brilliant is that? And they could have planned it out already. The Australian manager, everyone knows if we go into penalty kicks, I'm just going to sub them. And then keeper, do everything you can. Dive, jump, this and that, whatever. Does that make sense? And he gets criticism. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Keep the other. Maybe the other guy's not a great penalty kick stopper. Or he wanted to take him off. Instead,
Right.
this keeper, giving him a note, faked it. You never know. Do you see what I'm saying? If he was a great penalty kick stopper.
That's funny. Yeah, I appreciate you explaining that. So what you're saying is this gamesmanship where he holds up a note. Oh yeah, I know which way you're likely to go and all that kind of stuff. That's funny because I will say this: my technique on penalty kicks was always firm pass in the corner, low and hard. And during practice, I'd get that 95 times out of 100. I would just put it right in there. And then one time at the end of practice in college, the coach says, and we had a penalty kick contest. All of us went through. As soon as you missed, you were out, right? And it's the same keeper the whole time. The poor guy is worn out because he's got 100 penalty kicks in 20 minutes, right? And it gets to the last one, and it's just me. I'm the last guy and the goalkeeper. And the coach says, if Dan makes this penalty kick, then if Dan doesn't score this penalty kick, then we're running a lot at the end of practice. If Dan makes it, then we're off for the day, right? And I'm aiming. I'm just going to go low hard. And he looks at the keeper and says, if you don't try, we're still running, right? If you don't give it your best try, we're still running. So I'm either going to pass it in the left or I'm going to pass it to the right on the ground. That's what I've done every single time. So to your point, so I step up. I'm nervous. Now all of a sudden I get this pressure, right? I lean back a little bit too much. And for the first time, the penalty kick, instead of going low and hard in the corner, it goes up. And I'm crapping my pants and, oh, this is going to go over the bar. And it goes into the upper 90 perfectly, but not intentionally. It just, it was like, perfect accident. But because I've been trying to get it low and hard all the time, the one time I actually mishit it, I still had enough muscle memory where
it was inside the post.
It at least didn't go over the goal. I got lucky. And the beautiful dive and it missed his fingertips barely and went in. And the whole team looks at the coach. The coach goes, I don't think the keeper tried hard enough. And started laughing. And then the whole team rushes. And so I pointed that. And then in the amateur soccer, men's amateur championships, last time I played indoor years ago, it was the same thing. I was the last penalty kick taker. And I did the same thing. I was nervous. I made it. We won, right? And I hit the upper 90, but I was aiming low. And so you're absolutely right. Just by aiming low all the time, then if you have some room for error, if it goes 3 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet higher than 7 feet higher than you wanted to, that's a good point. Get it low and high.
Can I tell you this one?
Or doing what Ronaldo did, which is blasting it down the center, right? Ronaldo blasting it down the center was beautiful.
Correct. 2 quick stories. So here's the goal, right? And I've gone over it and over it. And no matter what, it's, hey, if your friends told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? And at some point, your kid's going to do it. And haven't we had this talk 2,000 times in the kitchen? But at some point, you got to be your own idiot, right? And so my boy and I were talking. This is about 2.5 months ago, and here's the goal. Maybe that's too big. Here's the goal, and the keeper lines up, right here.
Yeah.
And that just scares the poop out of my boy. Because I'm having the boys pick who's hitting penalty kicks, and they have a 3-man rotation who tend to be the best 3, and what you make it until you miss it. And the keeper lines up. And I overdid it like this.
Yeah.
I think the keeper did it on purpose, but they're young enough where he could just be clueless. When you chain in under the goal, you know where you are. You know every inch of that.
Yeah.
And he lines up. I'm moving it over a bit again, like this. And instantly, Jack poops his pants, and he goes about right here. You know what? I always tuck it in there. I always tuck it in there. I always tuck it in there. The keeper lines up here, and he goes there. And what does he do there? He goes there, and he hits it about 2.5, 3 feet high in a nice, comfortable area, and he hits it here. He's afraid of that post, so the keeper lines up here. He doesn't go to his spot, but he doesn't want to go to that post, and he puts it there. And the keeper has a yawning save, and it's do what you do. Do what you do. You know what I mean? And it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's stressful. Yeah, PKs are so stressful. All right. Okay. So Australia, Egypt, we talked about that. Colombia, Ghana. I didn't watch that game. I watched the highlights. It looked like it was a little back and forth. Colombia maybe seemed like they had a bit more possession or whatever, and they scored a goal early and held on. Ghana had a bunch of chances that seemed like they could have finished and made it a tough game. And I think I expected more from Ghana because Colombia has also been a little inconsistent, but they've been playing, to be fair, they've been playing very exciting soccer the last couple of games I've seen them. They're attacking a lot. And I'm happy to see Colombia back because Colombia in the 90s was always a contender. And something happened in the 2000s where they maybe you know more about this, but it seems like starting in the 2000s, Colombia started to wane. I'm not even sure they made every World Cup, but they just weren't much of a threat. And now they seem like they're a threat again.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. 94, 98, 90, 94, 98. 98, they were too old. England yawningly beat them 2-0. I think that's the game that they got knocked out in 98. 94 out of this.
That was an example of them, what you talked about earlier, where Colombia was holding on to its older players
100%.
In 98 and thinking, we've done great with them in 90 and 94. Let's do it again in 98. And then guess what? Nope, they were done.
100%. And they were so beautiful in 94 and at a peak. And they scored on themselves against the U.S. And everybody watched 30 for 30, the documentary, The Two Escobars. It will bring you to tears, and it's sad. And you know what? They were better than the Americans. But the Americans played with heart, and that was in the United States. And the Americans did great, and the Americans beat them 2-1. And again, they shot themselves in the foot. Don't go down 1-0. I know that's an easy, simplified thing. And in 90, they had come up and they tied Germany 1-1. I remember we went bonkers at home in Canada. We went bonkers. Colombia scored and tied West Germany 1-1. And Colombia was the much nicer team, much more beautiful team to watch play. Germany was just a structured unit, and that's one of Germany's World Cup wins, 1990. So they had 90, 94, 98, and then they went silent, like you said, and they're back. Colombia should have won that game by 2-3 goals comfortably. Colombia took a 1-0 lead early on, 11 minutes in, something like that, 13 minutes in, and Colombia, for the next 15 to 20 minutes, played beautiful, like Brazil 1982 or the Netherlands 1974. Hey, you're like, man, Colombia can make this 3-0 by half. Dummies, flicks, tricks to play gone into the ground and couldn't score. And it finished 1-0. And it was in a way a mentally lazy performance, it seems like, because they should have won that one. The closest it should have been was 2-0. They could have won it 3-0, 4-0. So that's all to say about that. Ghana didn't offer a lot. Everybody knew Ghana was a weak team coming into this. I will say this, I don't know, but that's one of the few groups that had 3 teams to that point, Croatia, England, and Ghana. So that was pretty cool. So that's as far as anybody could have expected. Ghana get out of the group. You'd rather get out of the group in second so you could brag a bit. Getting out of the group in third is most people get through, if that makes sense. So Colombia was yawning. It was easy. It was simple for Colombia. That's it.
Yeah, and it did seem the highlight of that game was the Ghana keeper. Just had some amazing saves. It seemed he was, whether he was right place, right time a lot, or which
They
a
hit
lot
him.
of times that's because, yeah. So, yeah, it was a great job. Now, what's funny is I had some friends come over last night before we went to see a live music show to celebrate 4th of July on July 3rd, because today, babysitting my granddaughter, Nayeli. Crystal and I are going to be doing that.
Yes.
And while the kids go enjoy 4th of July with their friends, my little Cypriot, Mexican American granddaughter, the most beautiful little girl you've ever seen. And I'm not biased at all. So I have these friends over who are they grew up in South Dakota. They're like the typical people our age, the typical Americans our age. I love them, Randy and Molly, love them to death. But and I grew up not really liking soccer all that much, thought it was a stupid sport. It still gets made fun of by guys in their 50s who are still holding on to the fact that, oh, soccer's stupid, nobody scores, and blah, 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 and they're whiners and they fall. The people that complain the most about soccer in this country are my generation and older. The people 10 years younger than me, that's when soccer started having, here, perfect example. I tell my kids, you have the benefit of being cool when you're in high school playing soccer. When I was in high school playing soccer in America, we were called ugly names by the football
Don't even
players,
say the names.
basketball
Don't say
players.
them.
I care. I cannot, right? And those soccer, and it even continued in college, because I went to a Christian college. It was very conservative, and they did not like soccer players. It was American football. Anything besides that, those soccer players are druggies, and it was just like we were the equivalent of musicians and rock stars. That's how we were thought of by. But without the fame and appreciation.
Yeah.
Right?
Not in a positive way.
Like we were
in a negative way.
we were the drugs and sex and drugs stupid soccer players, but we weren't the cool rock and roll part of it. So we got that. It was rough. That's my point. And so my generation and older, it still has a kind of negative connotation with soccer as an underlying theme. Most of people have overcome it. So anyways, these friends come over, they don't know soccer. And it was funny. So we put off going to watch live music because the Argentina Cape Verde game was so good. That's my point, right? And so they don't really watch soccer at all, but you can't help it. They're like, okay, I guess this must be amazing because everybody's telling me this is amazing. You're being saturated with it in this country. And this is a perfect example. People my age don't even remember that the World Cup was here in 94, unless they were a soccer fan, a soccer player. And that's how bad soccer was in 94 in this country. I told the story of business, one of the headlines in the news in 94, business people didn't know why they couldn't get plane tickets and hotel stays when they're trying to fly into Dallas on a World Cup day. They didn't understand what's going on. There's millions of people here from all over the world, and you don't even know it. That's how bad it was. Anyway, all that is to say, so I had uninitiated friends here watching that game. It could not have been a better game because it's Messi. It's Argentina. It's 3-2, right? They are just like, wow, this is exciting. This is amazing. Cape
Is
Verde
this
had some
Messi's last
amazing
game? No way.
Right.
Not Cabo Verde. Yeah.
And Cape Verde, they had one of the most beautiful goals from the top corner of the box. We bends it in just past the keeper. But it's so funny because I had been telling Crystal, I go, that's the perfect shot because you're trying to bend it around the keeper's hands. If he shoots it straight into the corner, keeper can get it, but he had to bend it around. And this is the funny part I wanted to tell you. The confusing part, trying to explain to my friend Molly, the difference between extra time and overtime. Because that gets confusing when it's going to overtime. Because it's going like 93, 94. And then I'm confused because I missed when they restarted the halftime. I was fixing a drink or whatever. And then it restarts back at 90 to go to
Yes.
105. And then it goes to 108, and then it goes back to 105, and it goes to 130 or whatever number that works. Yeah, yeah. And they were, is the overtime 10 minutes, 10 minutes, or 2 15 minutes?
2:15, yep.
250. So it was just hilarious because I'm having to explain the difference between extra time and overtime. And Americans already get annoyed because they want to look at the clock and be like, I want to know how much time's left. And I call BS on that because I'm like, oh yeah, you mean like in an NBA game when there's 30 seconds left in the game and 10 minutes later, it's still not over because they had 3 commercial breaks and 20 timeouts in the last 30 seconds of the game, or an NFL game when there's 13 seconds left and you're sure the Chiefs have no chance to beat the Bills and they go down and score. So I'm like, no, at least I know the game's going to be over in 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know that when I watch an NBA game
100%.
or an NFL game, or let alone a baseball game. You have no idea when the baseball game's going to end. You know? So when America
Added time, some people in the 90s in the US call it referee's time. I don't get that, but we call it injury time also, if you remember that. And so it's like injury time and referee's time, don't get it, whatever, that sounds goofy. That's already what Americans were saying. I was like, okay, so how many minutes is it? I don't know. He's making it up in his head. That's funny, right? So it's, okay, so first of all, added time is the same as some people used to call it referee's time, which is the same as injury time, which is not overtime. And yes, we go past 90, then we start back at 90. Then we go past 105, then we start back at 105. Then we go past 120, but we call it 120 minutes. When in total, we probably played 130 minutes. Okay.
That was like, so now that's getting as hard to, and now that's getting as hard to explain as offside. All of a sudden. So that, talking about that, but outside of that, what a game. Back and forth. You're sure that Argentina is going to run away with it. They weren't playing bad. But you know what? That's interesting. They were worn out and they were exposed by Cape Verde. And so that bodes well for their next opponent. And maybe their next opponent after that. Maybe their next opponent after that. But there's a chance to break them down and look at that game and see what happened. Was it brilliant play by Cape Verde, or did they break them down? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. And so here's what I said, and this sounds stupid. Here's what I was thinking. If that game went one more 15-minute overtime, let's say, the Argentinians were physically done. More than Cabo Verde by far. Problem is they have so much quality, Argentina. Now, I think there's no doubt they were a little nonchalant. We all know this, right? Man, like, we've all done it. You got to get pumped up. Pump yourself up. I just cannot get as pumped at this moment. Yeah, you know what? Those guys play games in front of millions of people every single day or every single week. They're superstars seen all over the world. You know what? What do you mean? It's a World Cup, dude. Why wouldn't they be pumped up? Because they know that their other 8 or 9 teammates can carry them to the next round. And then suddenly they're fighting for their life. Guys are falling. Guys have cramps. And there's such a thing as the dark arts, no question. No, these were legitimate cramps, though. And the ref, I thought the ref did as well as he could do. The funny thing is, this is how the game is. If, again, I mentioned this the other day, I think, if you watch Japan's goal against Brazil, there wasn't a millimeter between Gabriel's foot, his right foot, when he reached back. I think the ball might have nicked his bottom of his boot, his cleat. But there wasn't 1 millimeter between Gabriel's foot and the ball. And then the ball was about 4 inches past Alisson's fingertips. It was about 2 inches inside the post. It's such a game of inches. Let's say it was a little bit lucky. Cabo Verde's first goal to tie it really brought belief, though, right? Argentina didn't play well. They were out of it, whatever. They were lazy, looking at the next game. And in the end, they won nothing. Okay. But Cabo Verde, the guy played the ball into the box at no angle, right on the goal line. And it went through the Argentinian defender's legs. And then the guy spun around and shot, and it went through the defender's legs into the far post. 2 straight balls through the legs. And literally it's going through the legs where the guy's legs are this far apart, and the ball brushed the inner ankles of both feet on both nutmegs. And I hate the word nutmeg because people talk about it. If my head's, the ball literally went like this 2 straight times. Incredible. And then once they went down 2-1, again, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and pull weeds. Argentina's going to make it through, and it made me sick. And then that goal, you just see everybody's face like, this is ridiculous. Absolutely phenomenal. And something they said again in a couple earlier games is so many balls are driven or bent or played to the near post for a flick on that at some point you got to go around. And I was wrong and right. Martinez, the defender, had a great outside the foot touch and a goal. That was the second goal. The third was a header. Let's go to the second goal. I'm like, somebody's got to, now it's been so set up, balls to the near post. Somebody's got to intentionally loop with just a baby pick to the far post. And that's how Argentina had gotten their second goal. Let me say one last thing. Did you see outside the foot on the half volley, Messi receives the ball on the boom, half volley, outside the foot, goal. And then Martinez, the defender, outside of the foot on the half volley, like he hits the ground, hits his foot, goal. That's something I've been doing with my son and daughter, because if you look at it, there's so many camps and clinics and this and that, but those are realistic things that happen all the time. Not a 360 rainbow. Those are things that are so common that happen all the time in a game. Argentina's first two goals, guy took it with the outside of his foot. It bounces, hits the outside of his foot, creates that little baby backspin, and then the next shot was a goal. Incredible. I think that is the most incredible. Forget all my bias for my team winning. That is the most incredible game I've seen in a World Cup for the last 4 or 5 World Cups. And part of it is, this is a very American thing. I'm not even going to say Canadian thing, but it's a very American thing, is to see David beat Goliath, to see the underdog. And oh my gosh, that game was incredible. Okay, one last thing. Vozia, the keeper, great. He beat 2 guys. And I was telling Jack, like, if he beats a third guy, that Argentine will pickpocket him and score. The Cabo Verde keeper, he's getting a little cocky, if you notice. And he, ole, twice. And if you saw the third time, he was looking at possibly beating a guy, and he looked over to his side, and it was Messi. And Messi, if you notice, was starting to come from a square position, sideways. So he was up here diagonally off where the guy could cut back. And Messi got real, I guess you'd say, shallow, and got into a very square position. And Vozia looked, and it was Messi. And Messi looked at, I'm coming straight from the side. You can't cut the ball on me. And he pooped his pants and smartly went out the other way. I'm like, if Vozia tries to beat an Argentine a third time, they're going to pickpocket him and roll it into the open net. And he never tried a third time. Messi scared him, and I bet his manager said, dude, no more. Anyway, little comment, little side note. So that's what I see with Argentina, Cape Verde. Okay, one more thing. Argentina were dead. Their next game is Egypt. Egypt played overtime too. Mo Salah is old, but he gets the walksome. He's the highest up attacker, let's say. If Egypt can play at pace, they're tired too. They went to penalty kicks. If they can play at pace, Argentina's old, though. They're way older. It's so much of the same roster. They're way older. Egypt might take a lot out of Argentina. Argentina is just so good. But you know who Argentina would play next? Probably the Swiss or Colombia. And if it's Colombia, I don't see Argentina winning that the way they're physically looking. And if it's the Swiss, will have a tiger by the tail automatically, because Argentina's getting blows, if that makes sense. So it's just a wearing. You know what I mean? If they played in a month, Argentina maybe could beat anybody. But if they play in 4.5 days, and then they play in 4.5 days, I think Argentina's getting worn down.
They had a tough road.
Going into it, Argentina's now doing this a little bit. If my arm, hopefully it looks like it's going down a bit. I think Argentina's doing this a little bit. And I'm not saying it as a rip at Argentina. If Brazil keep Casemiro win, we're slower than the Girl Scouts of America.
Yeah.
Or the Boy Scouts. We're slower. He is no longer a world-class athlete. He's an old soccer player. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it segues into talking about what we're going to talk about next is the next couple of days of games. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, right now we're talking about the round of 16. So when I look at the schedule coming up, today we have Canada, Morocco, Paraguay, France. Then we have Brazil, Norway coming up on
Sunday.
I'm looking at this right now. Oh, yeah, wait a second. Okay. So today, Canada, Morocco, Paraguay, France. Tomorrow we got Brazil, Norway. You're going to be stressed. Mexico, England. And then we're going to talk about, we got Portugal, Spain on Monday, USA, Belgium. And then that Argentina, Egypt game that you just talked about, and Switzerland, Colombia. So
I think there's one more game.
No, I think we got it. Canadian. We'll go through them all. So we already talked kind of about Argentina, Egypt, like you said. Could go either way. Argentina looks exposed. They might be tired. They might be aging. They might be on a downtrend for the event.
Yep.
Egypt, who knows? They're unpredictable. Well, I think that the fact that they couldn't handily beat Australia is not a good sign. But it's funny in sports. People will say the U.S. plays Belgium, and Belgium lost to Paraguay. So obviously the U.S. can beat Belgium, and no sport works like that, right? It's just never, because it's all in America. We call it any given Sunday for American football, but the truth is it's just any given day. But the trend is, but you can look at some trends in both sports and make predictions, generally speaking. So talk about Canada, Morocco. This is going to be a tough match for both teams. Canada's been playing well. Morocco's been playing well too. They tied Brazil. They beat Netherlands. I think this is going to be a tough game for Canada. But I don't know that much about Canada. I probably know more about Morocco. And you are Canadian. Tell me what your thoughts are about that game. Coming up here in about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, incredible. So Canada, here's a funny story. In 1985, I got a tryout for the Canadian U16 national team, but it was a fake tryout. It was pretty lame. And they took 96 players, and they were going to try to make a national team from it. And one of the players, I won't say his name, wound up, I think, captaining Canada's U20 national team, I think, at one point. But this is how poor it was. They broke the 96 people up into 16 sets of 6. 16 sets of 6 for the 96 players. And here's what was lame. And we had 2 days in a sort of tryout. This is so long ago, 41 years ago, that it was very lame. 1985. It poured so badly. This is how old school and bad coaching was then too. That the first day was just canceled, right? Everybody go back to your dorms at the University of Manitoba. And then the second day, you did a fitness run, and then they broke you up in the 16 sets of 6. This is what they broke us up into. It was me and 5 other guys. All 5 guys were from Quebec. Now, they spoke great English, but they're all on the Quebec team. They're all together. They're mates. They're buddies. And the one guy that I told you became captain of Canada, his English was better than mine, which isn't too difficult. He was perfectly fluent in French and English. And as we played in a group of 6, it was 3v3, scrimmage, move it around. Hey, flip-flop players. It was so poor. You two flip and you two flip. They never said a word in English. Every single thing they said was in French. Come on. And how poorly organized, how bad was it? Do you know what I mean? It was so bad. Anyway, funny. I just thought that was a funny.
Before you go any further, we're not going to tell the story here. But one of these days, we need to tell the story about. It's a funny and sad story about how you got screwed out of playing for the Canadian national team at a young age because of an English coach who had it out for you. In fact, I'm just going to tell the story. It's so funny. Yeah, you're this naive kid who grew up in the jungles of Brazil, right? Who just loves soccer. Lives 300. Like, let me put on I just realized I turned off my video. So you live 300 miles south of the Canadian northern border, right? Or the end of the road, whatever it is. You live in the middle of nowhere. And coincidentally, you grew up in Brazil where there's in the jungle where everybody plays soccer. And then you moved to this Manitoba where the natives, the Indians, for lack of a better word, we call them the Cree. You call them back then for sure. The Cree. They were a soccer community. Like in the, who would have thought it, right? In the middle of nowhere, Canada. And you get called up to this. I'd love to try to tell it for Zico because Zico doesn't brag about himself like I do. I brag about myself. I got way less to brag about. And I can also be self-deprecating, as you can tell. But so I want to say you're 12 years old. You get called. Just someone says, "Hey, coach," to whoever the guy who's doing like their ODP program. I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to butcher it, but this is generally what happened. We get this 12-year-old. Now, he's not going to make your U16 national team. And maybe I'm getting those years wrong, but something like that. He's not going to make the U16 national team, but you should take a look at him. So you're this little boy who watches soccer in your basement during the wintertime and filming games, World Cup soccer games from 1986 on, or what, 1980
86 on.
on. You have more about soccer than anybody. You can tell me what the elevation is of the field and wherever, South America and all this crazy stuff. And you're a player. You're a player, and it's about Zico's #1 draft out into the Canadian Soccer League out of college, all record holder in NCAA Division I soccer. So I can pull the soccer player. Zico's one of the best. And he won't tell you that. And that's why I got to tell you. So he goes to tryouts, and the coach, English guy, is like, come here, lad. He's trying to be nice to you. Come here. Now, I want to demonstrate one-on-one defending for these 15 and 16-year-olds. And I'm going to bring in a 12-year-old because that way I can show them how I can defend against this 12-year-old and demonstrate good 1v1 defense, channeling, turning sideways, right? And the coach says to you, now, Zico, or probably called you Brent because you weren't called Zico back then. Brent, what I want you to do is dribble past me. Okay. You're going to try and dribble past me and get over there. And you're like, okay. And you're not thinking, I don't want to humiliate this coach because that would hurt my chances. You're thinking, I want to follow what the coach told me, which he told me to do my best to beat him one-on-one. And
that
so
is
he can
100% true.
So this 40-something-year-old, 30-something-year-old coach, English guy with a fragile ego can demonstrate to the 15, 16-year-olds how to defend one-on-one. So the first time, you nutmeg him and beat him. And he's, look at this. Oh, good job, kid. That was wonderful. Now, let's do it again, guys. Sorry about that. Let me get reset. Okay. Zico or Brent?
In Gimli, Manitoba, yes.
Hey, okay. Now, all right, Brent, come on at me again. Try to beat me again. You nutmeg him and beat him a second time because you're following his directions. You're not reading the fact that he has a fragile ego, and you're destroying any opportunity you have to ever play for the Canadian national team in this moment. So he's a little frustrated. Okay, Brent. All right, lad, you got by me again. That's funny. Oh, okay, kids. Now let me show you how to defend. Now let me show you how to defend a 12-year-old. Okay, now let me show you. Okay, all right, Brent. Now do your best to try and get by me again, son. And he's in his defensive position. You nutmeg the guy a third time, humiliate him in front of these 15-year-old, 16-year-old boys. And instead of doing what you or I hoped we would do if we were in his position, saying, holy crap, I might have to put this guy on my U16 national team. I need to make sure for my country that this kid is earmarked as, if he's not playing for the U16 national team this year, he may play next year. And if he grows, whenever he starts growing, he's going to be on our national team. Instead of that, he blacklisted you from the national team program from that day on. And it's one of the funniest and saddest stories I've ever heard in my life when it comes to a young boy, how a coach screwed him over because of his fragile ego and destroyed, and brings tears of my eyes, potentially destroyed you should have been playing for the Canadian national team, in my opinion. Because I've seen the Canadian national team play in the early 90s, mid 90s, when you would have been on their team. No doubt in my mind, you should have been on the team. And it's all because of a fragile ego coach who cared more about his personal ego than about the Canadian national team. He put himself above the country. And yeah, I'm going to call him out on that because that's what I see. And it's sad when coaches do that. So you don't have to talk about that much, but
let me correct one thing.
Say what you're going to say and then tell me what you think about Canada. Okay. Yeah.
So everybody who made the Canadian national team then was from British Columbia or Ontario. And there were one or two of these kids who were from Quebec who would only speak French because they wanted to chase you out, right? And nothing was in the middle in the prairies. So I was in Manitoba. And so it wasn't the Canadian national team at the time. It was the provincial team. But what happened is they blackballed me from the provincial team, which I kept making all the time. But back then, Canada was so far behind, and Canada even, was so big, that only the coasts or closer to the coasts made it. Only these two provinces made it, and a little bit from here. But he chased me out of even getting a look with the provincial team. So I stayed making it, but his other fellow Brit, this guy was actually Welsh, his other, they were all Brits, fellow Brit, abhorred me for it. And that's the last time I really funny thing, really saw that guy that I nutmegged 3 times, 100% right, 3 in a row. That's the last time I really saw that guy. And then there was another guy who was there. And here, let me go back to this. So we were raised in the Brazilian Amazon as missionaries. Portuguese is my first language. And I don't even know how we went off here, except you asked me about Canada and Morocco. So we will be there in 1 minute. And I would say I lived in a bubble, though. There's no population. We were working with different tribes, taking medicine in and the Bible, the gospel, into different tribes in the Amazon. And from there, we left. We had a few months in the U.S., and then we went up to Canada. I am Canadian and American and Brazilian at heart, my first language, everything else. And within a week, my dad took me to the Big Eddy Indian Reserve, now a Pasquak Nation, really, but that's what it was called, the physical land, whatever. And a guy named Frank Young, great guy, one of the Cree soccer leader there, to be honest, Frank Young and my dad, and I was playing at Big Eddy on their soccer field, which was a rock quarry. I don't think there's a blade of grass on it. It's just pure rocks. I really don't think there's a blade of grass on it. Within 4 or 5 days of being there, I was going across the river to play on what was the Big Eddy Indian Reserve. And so I am saying all that to say this. I wasn't a city kid. I lived in a bubble. And remember, kids are literal. And he's, hey, try to beat me. Well, I'm going to try to beat you. And I did. Okay, so Canada, Morocco. Canada's so many of the European nations, right? Canada's a melting pot. And I don't know if they still have it, but back when I was there, they had a festival called Folklorama. And it was food. All the schools around in Winnipeg had every school, like this school had in the gym, Ethiopian culture and clothing and music and this and that. And the tables would have Ethiopian food. And then at this school, just 3, 4 blocks, 8 blocks away, would have Czechoslovakian food back then, right? And it was the coolest thing in the world. So Canada is such a melting pot. So Canada has wonderful players, more talent as a whole. I said this to some of my friends that I text with all the time that I graduated with. I told them, I said, hey guys, the danger is this. When Canada has a corner kick, that they're in trouble. The worst thing Canada can get just about is a corner kick. Because when they have a corner kick, they blindly go too far high. If Morocco doesn't have 1 or 2 out-and-out breakaways and maybe 3 one-on-one with the goalie today, I'll be shocked. Because I love what the job Jesse Marsh has done with the Canadian team, but he goes blank to the wall. And I think Canada can make it a game, but I would predict Morocco in this game. Morocco's so fast. And let me tell you this. To me, Senegal won the African Cup of Nations this last year. What happened in the final 20 to 30 minutes, everybody should go and watch, is wrong. I think the officiating was trying to get Morocco the African Cup of Nations, make them the African champions. It was wrong. Senegal won it. But what they did was atrocious. They won it, but there should be repercussions. They can't participate in the next 1 or 2. What they did was wrong. But Senegal won it. And the refereeing was so bad to get the home team, Morocco, to win it. That's inappropriate. A lot of people should lose reffing for the rest of their life or what have you, or officials, let's say. That's one. But now Morocco is the best team in Africa. It's not even close. But in that game, this last winter, Senegal beat Morocco. But right now, Morocco is the best team in Africa, period. And I think that Morocco wins the game today. I think Canada can make it a good discipline, and Canada has to hit on the counter. If you ever push Morocco back and they win the ball, holy cow, they're fast in their counterattack. Out of this world. I say Morocco. Canada can make it really close. If Canada's stubborn, they could get an ugly low press counter. But I don't think that's what Jesse Marsh does, the American coaching Team Canada, who's doing a great job, I think. So there it is. Sorry.
No, that's great. And you know what's interesting about that is years ago, but might even been decades ago, at least 10 years ago, there was a stat on the high percentage of goals scored when after you're defending a corner kick. So because when you're defending a corner kick, everything's open up in the space behind. And if something goes wrong with that corner kick, there's actually, it was something like, I think at the time, more goals were scored on the counter of a corner kick than were scored from an actual corner kick. And so you definitely have to be careful not to press too high on a corner kick because you can get countered, you can get scored against. It's like an offensive weapon for the defensive team.
100%.
So that's a good point. Yeah.
One last thing. If this is
Yeah.
the 18-yard box and there's a corner coming from over here, this side, let's say, this is the 18-yard box, people get a ton of players in here. What I like to get is 3 or 4 great headers in there and have 3 or 4 guys making an umbrella around the 18-yard box, if that makes sense. But people get like 7 people here, 1 or 2 guys here, and 1 guy at half. I'm like, dude, if you do that against Morocco and they win a cleanish header, I think Canada giving up a goal on their own corner and Canada just outright giving up breakaways it's this. We're going to go out and what is it? Better to burn out than to fade away, whatever. Canada plays there. It's an explosion. You know what I mean? They're not going to fade away. It's all or nothing. That's how they play. So anyway, that's what I think.
Yeah, kind of like Japan. Japan goes in all or nothing. We're gonna go play our game, and if we get beat, then we get beat, right? So that'll be interesting to see. All right. So then the other game we got today is Paraguay, France. Paraguay had a stunner against Germany. Germany wasn't that dynamic, to be fair. I can't remember a German player that I was excited about, and you probably do because you're better at remembering these things. But even when they played, they didn't seem to do much special in the first round that I can think of. And they probably go into that game against Paraguay thinking we got this, no problem. Paraguay beats them. But man, France is, I would argue, the scariest team for me right now in the World Cup. And so I see this, Mbappe, if it's 0-0 at halftime or 0-0 at 20 minutes left, Mbappe's going to say, and the victory, give me the ball. When Pelé says, give me the ball, I do this and I go score. Mbappe's going to take it to him. And I have and that's a very silly analysis that the game is not very in-depth, but I just see France overpowering Paraguay. I don't think they have much of a chance, but who knows?
You know what's hilarious? What you just said, I was about to say, hey, Dan, we can save some time here because we give so many personal stories. We can save some time here on this one. Now, I hope I'm wrong because what a Paraguay. Vamos, vamos. I got my nicest pair of boots ever from a Paraguayan I played against in 1990. It was pretty cool. He was from Word of Life Bible Academy in Paraguay, and they came visit the U.S., and I played against them. A couple years after I moved from Canada, but I was in school in the U.S. Incredible. That's the nicest thing Paraguay provided me in soccer, what have you. I think that France will just overpower them in every single position. France have better athletes in every single position. I think the Paraguayan, if you guys can, not Hill, Hill, Gil, Gill, the Paraguayan goalkeeper. Very beautiful story. If you guys can look him up. And Beth sent it to me, and I was like, Hill. The guy was saying Hill, the American guy. And it's like, but I'm like, Hill, did they naturalize an American or a Canadian or an English-speaking Brit? It's Orlando, right? Orlando Hill, and with a Gill. And he sold some of his clothes, his this and that. He coached a little bit just to save money to put food on the table and everything. And now he's playing professionally for San Lorenzo, I believe, in Argentina, big club. Interesting story. The only place Paraguay matches them is in goal, let's say. They don't match them in any other spot. I think that the game will be over quickly. And I think there's one other reason. By halftime, Dan, the French are so lucky. And let me tell you why. Because their opponent, Paraguay, who's not that talented, their opponent, Paraguay, beat Germany, historically great team. Correct? Whoa, man, that's amazing. And then guess what? They got to see Cape Verde play against Argentina. If you don't take in hand, you know what? Anything can happen here. A year and a half ago, Canada lost to Denmark in hockey, and Canada had a stacked team, and they were going to win I don't even know what it's called, the World Cup of Hockey, or the World Cup, or the World Championships, whatever. Canada lost to Denmark. Nobody would ever think that. And Canada even took a 1-0 lead. You know what? The race isn't always to the swiftest, right? Or the battle to the strongest, whatever. And Paraguay is going to get thumped. I hope I'm wrong and I can come back and embarrassingly apologize. You're right, Dan.
Yeah, and what you said is good. France is like, oh, the coach can say, look what happened to Argentina against Cape Verde. Let's not take, and look what's happening just with all the small countries. I think, totally, I think that what's happened is the rest of the world is closing the gap. There used to be this gap between the top teams in the world and the bottom teams in the world, right? Now you see the number one team in the world. What was Cape Verde ranked? Number 65 or something like that?
67,
Number 65, 67 team in the world. And that used to be like Germany playing against a high school team, right? Yep. That's what that used to be. And it's not that anymore, which is exciting. We actually have a little parity in the World Cup, which is probably for Brazil, great for the rest of us.
Totally. Let me say one more thing. I think we said this the other day. You can watch the European teams train every day in practice, the club teams. You can watch, there's a can on the road and Messi kicks it over towards the trash can, whatever, and it's on video. Do you see how he used the outside of his right foot that time? You can see everything. So where 45 years ago, a Brazilian would do something as, what is that? Here's an example. The Gol Olímpico came from the 1924 Olympics and the 1928 Olympics. Uruguay won the first two Olympics, didn't have a World Cup then. Jules Rimet wanted to create a World Cup of soccer only. They didn't have a World Championship of soccer only. They didn't have it. So the first World Cup was called the Jules Rimet Trophy. Jules Rimet wanted this. So what they did allow him to do, though, is have soccer put into the 1924 World Cup. Soccer was put into the 1924 World Cup in the 1924 Olympics and the 1928 Olympics. And guess what? A Uruguayan scored a goal from a corner kick. So it became a Gol Olímpico because it happened in the Olympics of 24 and 28 from a Uruguayan. So South Americans, Uruguay brought that. A bicycle kick is a Chilean. Although Brazilians say Valdemar Gibrito's the one who invented it. The Chileans say it's a Chilean. Bottom line is Brazilian or Chilean, South Americans brought that to the table. The Elástico, the famous Japanese Brazil, no-name Japanese Brazilian who introduced the Rivellino. Now you get American 12-year-olds doing an Elástico on the field. My kids are two of them. Doing an Elástico on the field. That was unseen. The rainbow, Ozzy Ardiles does it in the Escape to Victory 1981. So the creativity, it's the fact that the South Americans bring has been seen day in, day out by countries that would never do this stuff, by pragmatists have now seen all this creativity for 45 years. On YouTube's, on videos, they see practices of Barcelona, not games, practices. Do you see what I'm saying? And so,
100%. It's
smaller. And then these guys leave their nation, go get a passport, train and play with Bayern Munich, don't make the German national team, but they've been trained by the highest clubs on the planet. And then they go back and play for their country. So they have all this talent that go to Europe, get trained with science and those goofy bras that they're wearing now. They get trained there, and then they go back and play for their country. An example, the Netherlands playing against Holland. Only one player, Morocco playing against the Netherlands. What? Only one starter was born in Morocco? They're now being born in Europe and then going back to what was their country. So that's what's happened in the game.
It has. It is funny, though. It takes something out of the celebration for me now. When a soccer player takes his shirt off and he's wearing a bra, and I don't mean to sound whatever, but it's just funny when the soccer player takes off his shirt, and I'm like, that used to look so cool when he had abs and pecs and looked very masculine and raw, and now it's takes his shirt off and is excited, and I'm wearing a bra. And I'm like, put the shirt back on.
I know.
And it's something that just because I'm an old guy in his 50s, that just looks weird to me. It doesn't look, the new generation, that's just part of it. So it's not a big deal. And the American football players are probably wearing the bras underneath their outfits as well. They don't take off their shirts during the game because they'd have to take off their shirts and the pads and the helmet.
It takes minutes to put back on.
Whip off your shirt. Right?
Yes.
You can't whip off your shirt in an NFL football game and then to celebrate a touchdown. Right? That would be like
Right.
10 minutes.
Right.
Let's get the assistant over here and help get his outfit back on. All right. So we got that Paraguay, France. I'm going to leave Brazil, Norway I'm going to leave it to the very end of the whole conversation, actually. Mexico, England. Boy, I favor England in that one, but I don't know why. I think maybe because it's England, I think they're a little bit physically stronger than Mexico. Maybe that's my perception. And maybe they can it'll probably be the best team that Mexico's played so far in the tournament will be England. I think that seems to be, if I remember right, that's a true statement. And it'll be a test. If Mexico can beat England, look out. I'd almost be like, look out for them to win the whole thing or to be in the final, right? If they can beat England. And then, because England's gotten better as the tournament has gotten on, yeah, I feel like. And Mexico's just been rock solid the whole time. Kind of like US and Mexico. They have just both played consistently very well. And are they going to keep playing well against an England, against a Brazil or Norway or Spain or an Argentina or whatever? Yeah, but that's my thoughts about the Mexico-England game. What are your thoughts about that one?
Wow, that one's so impossible to pick to me. Let me tell you this.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with Ecuador. They pooped their pants, but I was so wrong. Mexico, half of it was Ecuador was terrible. But wow, Mexico was good. If Mexico can play this like an English premiership game, which is what they did against Ecuador, high intensity every second, high and hard, I don't think England can physically keep up. Now, it's high alpine weather, to be honest. Mexico City, it's not like the hottest Cancun or whatever, something like that. So it's very high. It's 7,300 feet, I think I looked something up the other day talking about it, yesterday or the day before. So it's high. So the elevation is going to be hard. England's going to have to cope with the elevation. I don't know if you heard this, but they're either flying in super late to avoid the altitude sickness, what have you, or they're planning on taking something berry. I forget what it was. Can't be coca leaves. I did that way back in 96. I don't think it can be coca leaves. I don't think they allow that. Anyway, the other thing is this. Mexico is going to find out where England's staying. And they will have firecrackers and horns the entire night in the hotel. There'll be firecrackers and horns. Mexico will keep, the English might come in late, might come in literally late in the day, but they're going to come in late so they don't suffer the elevation issues. And then they're going to be kept up the entire night by Mexican horns and fireworks. All of that said, I think Mexico's going to win. England's stronger, England's this, England's that, but it's 7,300 feet high. And they're you think about it, you're a bit nervous. But have you ever been a bit uptight and nervous the day before a game, and then there's horns and firecrackers the entire night? If they had James Bond technology that they took there, maybe they could each have sleeping chambers and everything else, right? And take that whatever berry it's called, something berry drinks. You know what I mean? But that is, I know, I agree with you, Dan. The talent, England.
But if I'm an English player, I just say, hey, I've got ADHD. Give me some Adderall. I'll get through the game.
Exactly.
You're right. You're right.
And how legal is that, though? I don't know. Adderall.
I'm sure I'll bet. Yeah, I'm sure you're not allowed to take anything like that. Coca leaves, which is people who work in the fields in Colombia, they chew on coca leaves to give them energy. Like we might drink a cup of coffee. And that's what they make cocaine from, but they concentrate it. So that's a good question. Is the coca leaf like the equivalent of me taking ginseng or something? Because it's not cocaine, it's not crack, it's not Adderall. It's a holistic remedy almost and energy. So could I take a coca leaf before a game? I don't know.
We went and played 2 professional teams in Cochabamba. And if you remember, I said it like that because there was a commercial, Cochabamba, something like that. And I think it had to do with the theme of, who is it? Come on, man. Who's the guy who did it? Mike Myers. What's the character?
Mr. Dr. Evil or whatever.
Yeah. And I think it was a commercial that had that theme. And the redheaded kid who was a weirdo kid,
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe it was his son, right?
His
son.
nephew. His nephew. It was like his nephew. His
Correct.
redheaded nephew. Like literally, the character was the redheaded nephew.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there it is. There it is. And we play in Cochabamba at 8,600 feet high. I almost said 1,000. 8,600 feet high. And we were going there with the soccer team, and we were going there to share the gospel with them, or as a missionary team, we were going there. And it's funny though, because when you get on the field, we talk about moral relativity. When you get on the field, and I don't even know that it's bad or whatever, but we played 2 professional teams way up there. And man, we were drinking Coca-Tina on top there. Hey, and so these are the local Bolivians. We were playing Cochabamba, Bolivia, and they're like, drink this. And I don't know if we chewed on leaves. I really don't know. But drink this. It'll help you breathe. And it did. And minutes 70 to 72, the few abs I had left then were cramping. My abs were locking up. My abs were in the last 18 to 20 minutes. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, that was just a little funny story about it. So I think that if Mexico can go with that intensity, which they've already done at altitude, I think England's in trouble, dude. That's my opinion.
No, that's not. Harry Kane's not young anymore. Altitude's a real thing. In soccer, altitude and soccer, it's a real thing. It's not as bad with NFL where they can go off and get oxygen every 7 seconds of action.
Yeah.
30-second minute action. NFL football, even in basketball, they get timeouts, they get oxygen on the sidelines. Yeah, you've got 45 minutes of you have to run. And when I first moved to Denver, I was in my 20s. I wasn't in shape though. I just had an ACL recently before I moved here. But I remember the first time I tried to run down a soccer field, just an indoor field, my lungs were like, holy crap, that's crazy. It takes a while to get acclimated. So, all right, Mexico, England. I didn't think about that. I didn't realize they were playing in Mexico. That makes sense. All right, so, the other game we got tomorrow is, Brazil, Norway. And Norway is kind of an underdog, right? And they've got Holland. That's the team with Holland on it, right? Yeah. So they're an underdog. You'd like to think Brazil's going to win that game fairly easily, but Norway's here in the round of 16 to beat some good teams, and they do have a couple of dangerous forwards, not just Holland. Yeah, and I don't know. So, what are your thoughts? How does Brazil match up against Norway?
They have Holland and Odegaard. Odegaard, great passing, great midfielder. Wow. You think a great skillful player from Norway, you're like, okay, so what? I don't know. He's probably playing on a fast gym floor indoor all the time due to weather, you would think. And so he's just an excellent technical player. Oscar Bob, they've got a great team. They're tall. Funny stat everybody uses. I love stats, but stats are all out of context, including the stats you use, I use, whatever. But Norway's played Brazil 4 times, and they've beaten Brazil twice, tied Brazil twice. Part of the problem with this is, if you look deeper, not trying to be rude, when you play friendlies, that's what they're called, friendlies. Coaches are trying things, and you don't always get all your players in friendlies because he tweaked a hamstring. He's not going to go play a friendly, period. Now, Brazil has not beaten Norway. Just let's be clear about that. But 3 of them were friendlies. 1 was a World Cup game. Norway beat Brazil. There's a problem with that. 2 quick problems with that. 1, Junior Baiano never should have been on the team. If you ever look up Junior Baiano, he is a dirty hack. I don't understand how he could have played and started for Brazil. Horrible. It's just a real weird fit. Norwegians deserved everything they got. They beat Brazil 2-1. They had to win to qualify for the next round. They won 2-1. Brazil took a 1-0 lead, and they won 2-1. But here's the problem. Brazil had won their first 2 games. Norway had tied their first 2 games. So Brazil were through. Brazil was first. Brazil had 6 points. Norway had 2. All Norway could do is win and get 5 points. So Norway had everything to play for. Brazil had pride to play for. That's a lot. Anything easy about this game? No way. Again, Paraguay and Cape Verde just taught us, right? Germany just taught us. Argentina just taught us. The Norwegians know every single thing about Brazil, including how they wipe their backside. Do they want the toilet roll over or under? You know what I mean? And so they know everything about Brazil. Do you think Norway will be organized? Yes. They're very collectivist anyway, right? They're northern, humble, as far as they work as a team, if that makes sense. The great world-class soccer that they got to see forever was the English First Division and the English Premiership, which isn't about prima donnas. Now, it is more now, a bit more now. They have some, let's say, but it's not about prima donnas. It's about everyone gets forward, everyone gets back, or a lot get forward, everyone gets back. So Norway will be so organized, and Norway is tall. Brazil are the favorites, but I don't feel good about it. Not at all. There are worse teams to play, but Norway will play Brazil extremely well. I hope Brazil scores first, and I hope Brazil doesn't slow down. That's going to be a hard game. If I had to place a bet, I'd place a bet on Brazil, but man, I am not doing backflips. I am not doing backflips. And of course, they had a blueprint by the Japanese as far as now you want to take a 1-0 lead, but how to delay things and slow things down and what have you. And the last thing is the Norwegians have a ton of guys over 6 feet, over 6'1", over 6'2", and Brazil doesn't. Japan didn't either. Brazil were overall able to out-athleticize Japan for air balls in the box. Overall, I think Norway can out-size Brazil in the box. So that's scary. Anyway, that's my take. If I had to put a bet, I would put a bet on Brazil, but I don't feel good about it.
No, it makes sense. That's a scary game for
It is.
Brazil.
It's
Go to
It's going to be tough.
we already talked about Switzerland, Colombia. We're going to talk about Portugal, Spain. I think that Portugal's kind of inconsistent coming into their own. They're super confident. You could argue, if I'm not mistaken, I think you could almost argue that, making some coffee here. Hopefully that wasn't too noisy. I got my espresso machine pounding away over there. I almost think that Ronaldo's not one of their best 11, and he's on there because of his name and his ego and whatever. And so I wonder if that game drags on for Portugal, how much sooner should you sub out Ronaldo and get a faster, fitter, younger player in there? That'll be my kind of one question for you about that. Because the thing about Messi and the thing about Modric, the difference in the type of player they are lends itself to being old, right? Because it's the way they play the game is with their head up here more than anything. And how smart they are at passing, how smart they are at moving off the ball, all those things. Ronaldo has always relied on his physicality, his quickness, his trickery, and that's harder. It's amazing he's been able to compete at getting older because of the type of player he is. Now, having said that, it's not that he's dumb when it comes to tactical play. He knows how to position his body well. He's a good passer. He's good. So not downplaying, but I wonder if that game is tight towards the end. I wonder how soon you sub out a Ronaldo for that game and say, hey, we need something more against Spain. That's something to me to watch for. But that's probably the only unique maybe insight I've got that you say, because all they're going to talk about is how great Ronaldo is. And but yeah, what are your?
I think this game, could be wicked. And the reason being is, this, it's the Iberian Peninsula rivalry, right? Portugal's here and Spain's wrapped around it. It's the Iberian Peninsula. So those two are tight. It's a derby. That's a derby, right? Like Canada plays the US. It's a derby. I think that at some point you're going to have to take Cristiano Ronaldo out because you need mobility at some point. But where I think that, he might not be in their starting 11 in theory, because come on, man, he got a huge shadow. But I will say one thing about him. Who there is physically meaner, bigger, tougher, stronger, faster than him? And what I'm saying is, you get a couple good crosses in. He can score with his head, yawning today at 41 years old. He can out jump people and score with his head with little effort in that way. Spain plays, again, part of the beauty, let's say, of their game is they play such a collectivist game. They kill you by 100,000 short little passes. It can get boring. It can be useless sometimes. But I think that he does. He's molding what we said before from just passing boringness to he's got a lot more go direct. I think this will be such a brilliant game, has the potential to be such a brilliant game. Where I see the Portuguese have guys like Bernardo Silva and Leão and Chinha and, dude, I'm drawing a blank, but whatever. They're left back. They have so many talented, high talent players juggling a ball with your butt cheeks and your nose and what have you. Portugal's midfield is world class. The best, the second best at worst, tied for the best. So that's going to be a crazy game. I would say the same thing I say about Brazil and Norway. I would pick Spain, but I would not feel comfortable about it. And let me tell you, there's about 4 Portuguese players that could pull a rabbit out of a hat in a second. And Neves on the right side, great player. And then let's play this for Diogo Jota, the great Diogo Jota, who died last year. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary in the car crash, right? Man, you take all this stuff together. It's emotional, right? When you bring emotion into it, rival neighbor countries, only the 2 of us on this Iberian Peninsula, it's emotional. And Portugal has the talent to beat them. So Ryan Martinez did make the sub, didn't he? He made the sub with 10 minutes left. It's 1-1. And Cristiano was pouting. Cristiano on his face, it was a Taylor Swift song on his face, all in the span of 20 seconds, all the moping and whatever else. But then guess what? Hey, thank you, coach. Great sub. We won. I get another game, right? So I think Spain this much edge. But Spain is good. I give them that much edge.
Yeah. Yes. No, I appreciate that. It always, your knowledge of all the players, all the teams, all the countries is vastly outweighs mine as far as knowing the players' names, who plays. I'm like, I don't know a single Portugal player.
And I don't get to watch a lot of modern stuff either. But I just try to remember.
Yeah, and but just the fact that it's a derby, I didn't know that. So this has the potential to be like Mexico, USA intense, like Morocco, Netherlands intense. This could be a bit of a bloodbath. I'll see what happens. And you are right about, what's interesting about Ronaldo early in his career, he was horrible in the air. He was a horrible header. And he made a conscious, is the one thing I respect about him. It reminds me, people know this about George Brett. He was a horrible third baseman for the longest time for the Kansas City Royals. And he worked so hard to become a Golden Glove winner. But he went from being a great batter, a bad third baseman, a barely good enough. The only reason he was third base because they needed him up to that bat, right? But he worked on he decided, I'm going to be a good third baseman. I don't want to be a one-dimensional player. And so Ronaldo, when the greats do that, when they're humble enough to go, hey, this is a weak part of my game, I'm going to work hard to improve it because then I can be a legend, not just another good player. Right?
The first 7-8 years of Messi's career, he was not a very good free kicker. He was good. He's excellent now. The fact he didn't score one of those free kicks yesterday blows my mind.
Oh, yeah. They were good kicks too.
Worked on it like you said George Brett did.
Yep. And so Ronaldo worked on, and so he does. He knows how to position it. What worries me, and when we talk about Belgium, this will worry with USA, but what worries me when I'm playing against an older player, then I'm like, okay, he's not going to beat my defenders one-on-one. He's not going to overpower my defenders, whatever, but sneaky like a fox. They know how to position themselves. They know how to find that spot in the box to get open, like a Harry Kane. Or a Messi. I'm just going to walk over here. Don't mind me. And then boom, they do something great. Yeah, that's that kind of Ronaldo to a degree. So, I think that's going to be a good game. That's a better game than I thought. I think that, I might favor, after hearing your assessment of everything, I might favor Portugal slightly. Yeah, because they're not going to have it. They're not going to have it from Spain, just possessing the ball and dicking around with it for 90 minutes. They're going to go get them and they're going to disrupt things, I think, and create some opportunities. I think there's a real chance for that.
Agreed.
I don't know. Yeah.
Agreed.
I might pick Portugal and you pick Spain on that one. Interesting. USA, Belgium. I have to say, I know nothing about Belgium. No, wait, were you going to say something else about Portugal, Spain?
No.
Okay. Nope. So USA, Belgium. I think this is our last game. We talked about Argentina, Egypt. It should be Argentina, but who knows? Based on that last game, maybe Argentina has a reality. That was good for them to lose that game because now they have a tight game there because now they're going into Egypt, not taking it for granted. Talked about Switzerland, Colombia. The game can go either way. Both teams are playing very well right now. USA, Belgium. USA, I always just think of them as young and inexperienced compared to just about anybody they play. Belgium has a soccer tradition of forever. I have a feeling, I don't know, I'm curious to hear how you know their individual players, but I imagine Belgium, not knowing anything about them, having a strong team full of players who play at the highest level for one country or another. I imagine they have a couple of old guys, maybe even an older. I'm just going to predict they have an older forward who I worry about because he's going to be crazy, like a smart, like a fox. He's going to know how to mess with. But to be fair, and so I think they're the best team by far that U.S. has faced so far is going to be Belgium, right? By far, they're the best team.
Correct.
I think
They're the best older team.
Yeah,
They
the
have some
best
new
team
guys coming in, but their leaders are old. So let me say
that kind of. Yeah, tell me all about it, man. I want to hear your take on it.
Let me tell you about Belgium for 2-3 minutes. Then you wrap it up with the U.S. and then we go watch a game. Come on, Canada.
Yeah.
But I think Morocco, but come on, Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
Belgium. I heard this point the other day and it was brilliant. It was by an American commentator. It was brilliant. The two guys who scored the goals, I think it was Lukaku and De Bruyne, against the U.S. in 2014 to knock the U.S. out of the World Cup. It was a game where Tim Howard made 14 saves. And it was like the most saves ever in a World Cup up to that point. He made 14 saves. And it was that thing he said, the stupid, I believe that we will win. Okay, why do you believe that you will win? That's stupid. What gives you hope? Right? Look at my red, white, and blue. Okay, what gives you hope? Those two guys, 2014, this is 12 years later. Father Time is undefeated, right? And it's, what is it? Diminishing returns now, right? De Bruyne and Lukaku. Lukaku's that number 9, big, powerful forward who's smart, powerful. But he's their big, powerful forward. This is 12 years later. Let's say they were 22 then, right? They're 34 now. In fact, I think De Bruyne is 35, I think. And when you play a power number 9 position, we're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, you're 34, you're 35, that's being 40. And of course, Cristiano Ronaldo's not normal. And Messi doesn't play that role. Messi walks, and he lets your intensity make him open. He's going to walk. You're going to do this Marine, come on, soldier, running around, and Messi's going to stand there. And you forget about Messi because he's a bump on a log, right? Lukaku plays power, right? And if it's hot and humid, and the U.S. has this young, rebellious, energetic group, so I would say that this is the absolute perfect time where the U.S. beats Belgium because Belgium's getting older. Now, I do think Jeremy Doku's out of this world. He can draw a penalty kick for Belgium. He could drive the U.S. nuts. I think that if Lukaku, I don't know, if they can get him a lot on Ream, the 38-year-old American defender, and think, hey, if I'm 34 or 30, by the way, Lukaku is a bit bigger than the average Kansas City Chiefs linebacker. His shoulders are like this. If I'm old, I'm going to get on your old guy. And with Doku and De Bruyne, I'm shocked. All of his shots have gone off like this. De Bruyne hits a ball as purely as anybody playing the game today. He does. But he's missed 4 or 5. I'm in shock. I think this is the time where a young, believing, now I can quote the Japanese because Brazil's beaten them. And I'm not worried about them right now, but and I'm not going to say it in Japanese, but there's a saying I heard that the Japanese have: the experienced, which we talk about how great experience is, the experienced should fear the strength of youth. The U.S. has this youth thing going on, man. Wow. And like we said, they have 15, 16 players that can, and there's no real difference. But be aware, Belgium was down 2 goals. They can believe they can come back because they scored 3 goals in about 30, 40 minutes. And then Belgium does have talent because when they took off Doku, this brilliant player, and De Bruyne, they brought in 2 subs and they scored goals, 3 goals. So they have things they can do. But I think the U.S., man, they have this young, rabid dog energy. And they're playing. This is the best team and the oldest team.
So, yeah, you'd almost be more fearful of, based on what happened in that last game with Belgium. If I'm the coach, I think about if it goes on with the USA and we're not winning, we're not leading, I make those subs earlier, right? Yeah, put on what worked for me in that last game. I put those guys on earlier. That might be the way to go. Somebody said about Messi, I want to go back to real quick. In college, when we played a top team my freshman year, the coach would put me on the other team's best player, and I would shadow him the whole game because I was a pretty good defender it was hard to dribble around me because I was good at reading and anticipating and channeling and all that kind of stuff. But if someone gave me the assignment of marking Messi for the whole game, let's take Messi out of the game. Let's put someone on Messi for the whole game. Just take him out of the game. Oh my God, the guy would fall asleep because he'd be walking for 80 minutes. You can't shadow Messi the whole time. You'd be bored out of your freaking mind. And you'd have to go help other situations because I can't walk for 90 minutes. If I live 67 minutes. That's what the brilliance of Messi. He's saving all his energy and he's ready to go when it's time to go.
This is nothing special. And I'm just giving a microcosm, a little example. My gosh, I'm not saying this, okay? But when I could tell somebody was defending me, when the game was like pretty hectic and somebody was marking me, I wouldn't always, but I would do it up to 2 times in a game. You can't do it more than that, let's say. One time I would walk towards the sideline talking to the coach and just saying something like, we've got good possession, we're moving forward, and just saying something. But the first thing I would do is I would go down and I would tie my shoes. So I would, at some moment, just pull, untie. Then I'd go down and I'd tie my boots. Because as I tied them, then I would just flip-flop legs and go to tie the other one. That guy would lose his mind because what they put on you is a warrior. They put a warrior on you. And a warrior cannot, my mom, she cannot stand, her best day is getting up, scrubbing the toilets, doing a word puzzle, then getting up, cleaning the shelves, then get up and clean out the fridge. When they put somebody like that on you, and you're clever, and they are honest as the day is long, they can't stand there with you. Roberto Vieri, who's Christian Vieri's dad, an old coaching buddy of mine and yours, played with him for 1 year. And he was older, and he was a chain smoker, and when they put him on, he always had a guy who would man mark him. And he would literally stand for 4 or 5 minutes in one spot and say, okay, game can be 10 on 10 then. Because I'm not going to run. I bring this creativity. And you guys just lost a guy who's 23 marking me, who's a 38-year-old chain smoker. I'll just stand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's fun.
I remember when I was market. Yeah, I remember when I was that guy and the guy would go, hey, coach, I got a shadow. He'd make fun of me because I was the guy marking him in a college game. And it never was all that effective. To be fair, it wasn't that effective trying to take the guy. I never took him out of the game because I get bored out of my mind. I'm ADHD. The reason I play soccer is because I'm ADHD. Otherwise, I'd have played baseball.
Exactly. Now, let me give you one more thing.
Okay.
Now, they're going to suck you in by being brilliant, right? And if you notice, Messi comes in late when it's like the perfect time to get there. That's when the defenders read and they get there. That's when the run has to be timed, right? Timed run. When you timed run, what do you have? Defender timing, +1 in your own 18, you're hoping at that moment. Messi's making a late timed run. Messi could have scored 3 goals yesterday, maybe 4. Keeper made a point blank save, and they blocked a one-touch Messi had to win it pretty late. They blocked it on the ribs or whatever. And oh my gosh, Messi didn't bury that. And he wasn't brilliant for Messi.
Sure. All right. Let's move on. So my last thing about USA is they've deprived me every game. Their consistency. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop with the USA right now. When are they gonna make that stupid errant pass out of the back that creates that? When are they gonna do that silly thing that they've always done in a World Cup that loses them the game or whatever? That mistake they make. They can't finish like they should have finished the easy one. I'm waiting on that, and it just hasn't happened. The US has been playing just as well as any team. I was telling my buddy yesterday, I said, if I didn't know the history of any of these national teams, I just came in and wanted to, and I give my opinion like an alien. Who's the top? Here's the top, the best. The team's playing the best soccer right now at the World Cup. USA might be in the top 5. If I went back and looked at the games of how they're playing, Mexico be in the top 5. Yeah,
they are.
They're playing.
3 hosts are into the final 16. Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, that's good. Now we're talking about that red card against our In any other year, when that red card happened, we already talked about that a little bit. I felt it was so impressive that the U.S. perfectly played how you play when you're a man down. They handled that with character, with maturity. So that gives me hope that they're going to keep playing because they haven't. They've showed maturity the whole time. They got screwed over on that red card, especially like we talked about earlier. If you're going to use VAR to screw me over, hey, I can take pictures and show you an example of 6 other guys getting cleated the same way that guy cleated, and it didn't even go to VAR. And the guy didn't even get a yellow card. And so these still pictures are showing of Messi cleating that guy from behind. No doubt that, and not even that referee made the right or wrong choice in that moment. He made a different choice than what was made in 6 other games. And like I said, when I saw Messi cleat that guy in that game, I was sad because I thought, oh, Messi might get a red card here. And I'm not going to see him for the rest of this game and the next game. My heart did not want him to get a red card, right? But as an American forward that nobody knows, the referee doesn't care. He's got no emotion in it. He's just going to call it. And it looked horrible when that guy's ankle was turned under. It looked bad. It looked like he could have broken his ankle. But bad call, whatever. We don't agree with it. It was inconsistent, yada, yada, yada. So in the past, I would be like, oh, man, USA doesn't have a chance. Their leading goal scorer is out of the game this next round. They don't have a chance. What do we do? But like we talked about, they have 15, 16 guys worthy of starting. They've got other goal scorers. Whether it's Berhalter or Reina, or Claudio Reina, rather. I can't remember who else they got. It's really good. I will say this. What concerned me about Pulisic in that last game, he really faded fast when we were down a man. He looked tired. I was like, oh crap. Sub Pulisic off now. There's no need for him to be out in the field. We're up 2-0. Get him off the field. Even when we were up 1-0, I was like, let's get him off the field because he looks tired. I am concerned about Pulisic's durability, but if he can step up and be that great player consistently, he could be the guy that leads the team to the end. I just don't know. Then you got McKennie, who's a workhorse. The first time he subbed off was in that game. He's played the whole. So I think we got a great chance. Our keeper hasn't been tested all that well, but he's been consistent. He hasn't let in easy goals. To be fair, we had a lot of corners against us where they tried to pack it in and disrupt the keeper mentally and physically, and he withstood that in the last game. So yeah, I think USA got a great chance, and it'll be, you and I are going to be very happy. Both of us are going to be very happy the next time we meet for our podcast. We're both going to be very sad and not even wanting to do the show, or one of us is going to talking the other. It's going to be one.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the truth. One of
if it goes bad, I'm going to have to talk to you. I'm going to need it though. If that goes, Dan, I need some good words. If it goes.
Yep. And I look at it and I go, I have family that's Mexican. I have a friend that's Canadian. I have a friend that's Brazilian. I always look at, if the U.S. is out, who's the next team I'm going to look for that I'm going to root for because of some connection?
I'm going to be happy for them.
For me, I'll be happy for them. So if the U.S. is out, Brazil will be my team. If Brazil and the U.S. are out, I'll be looking at Canada and Mexico, because they're CONCACAF and because I have a connection with those teams. But so I will be looking for someone to root for. And I say that not trying to jinx anybody or anything, but it's going to be an exciting World Cup, but hopefully we have them. So, all right, brother, got to go. Oh, man. So Zico got cut out. That's totally fine. We're finished. We will see you guys on the next one. We're going to be excited to watch this round of 16 over the next couple of days. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in.